Wondering what life is really like on Canada's wild and crazy West Coast? This podcast is all about the people, the places, and Vancouver Island time. Together, we'll explore this island paradise, a combination of ocean, city, and country living. We'll meet the fabulous locals, such as the Fudge Fairy and the Chicken Lady, who have chosen Victoria and Vancouver Island as their home. And we'll learn what makes this place unique and special to those who live here. And now, your host of Vancouver Island Time, Jane Johnston.
Hi everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun and host of Vancouver Island Time. I'm here with Angela Thurston. And Angela, what area are we going to be focusing on today?
We're going to be focusing on Dean Park.
Okay, so Dean Park. Tell me where it is exactly.
It is on the peninsula, and it's on the other side of the highway from Sydney. So you're really close to Panorama Rec Center. I'm not so good with directions, but it's between Saanich and the airport. Yeah, on that same side.
Right, and it sort of is the only real hill in the area, right?
Yeah, all the houses are built on the hill. So if you're on the right side of the street, you have a fantastic view.
Yeah, do you know that the cost, I figured it out last year when I had a listing, that the cost of having a view there last year was about $150,000.
Compared to houses without a view. Well, it is a very spectacular view, and you get what you pay for.
So Dean Park is kind of an interesting area because there are lots of areas in Victoria that have building schemes, and this one has an association. So a lot of people like it because it means that there's a level of control. There's no suites allowed. People aren't allowed to run a business out of their home there. They have rules like where your RV can be. And usually in these associations, they're not really enforced, but this one it is.
This one it is. No clotheslines in the backyard. If you want to paint your house, you have to put it into the committee to get approved, and you have to put a swatch of color on the side of your house, and the neighbors have an opinion if it's a good color or not.
No. What did you think about that?
Well, I think it's good because for me, if you're interested in maintaining a certain level of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Quality?
Yes, thank you. A certain level of quality, you know that it's going to be enforced there. So there's no motorhomes in the driveway, no boats in the driveway.
Yeah, and they're really trying to maintain the level, so there's no parking on the streets as well. You're not going to have somebody who has a suite and then have a ton of parking like you do in the lower part of Bear Mountain. Yeah,
no, you're not. If you have guests, they can park on the street, but...
So it has a really nice park in the area. Do you ever go up there?
Yes, all the time. There's so many different hikes up there. So much variety. There's harder ones. There's easier ones. Sometimes you can't drive to the top of the hill, depending on what season it is and what the fire warnings are at.
Is that you can't drive in the winter because of snow?
Yes, and then in the summer there's certain times it's shut. You can access it through walking, but not through driving because of the fire hazard.
And part of that area has been reclaimed by the First Nations groups.
Yeah, and I actually think that they're building a rehabilitation center up there.
Huh, that's interesting. Well, I mean, right now it's just a big forest, right?
It is a beautiful forest, and that's one of the beautiful things I like about Dean Park is when they created it, they maintained all of the trees. So all the lots have huge trees around them, and the lots are bigger than in a lot of neighborhoods in Victoria, so they're more private.
Yeah, they're between 10 and 15,000 square feet.
To me, I would look at that more like quarter acre, half an acre.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, they also, they had a lot of tree damage during the last storm.
Oh, I'm unaware of that. In the woods. Yeah, that happens every year just because the snow gets so heavy. And that would be another thing to watch for if Dean Park is your choice of neighborhoods, is that they get way more snow than anywhere else. There's been years when I've had to cancel appointments going to Victoria because at that time we didn't have a car that could get up and down the hill to our house. And I would be talking to someone in Victoria, and Victoria would have had no snow.
Yeah, because it's way more temperate. Even during the last snowstorm that we had, I think we had a couple of inches, and at my listing, we had a couple of feet. And actually, the snow ended up, because it wasn't cleared by the house so quickly, it ended up seeping into the house. So it caused a bit of an issue, an unusual issue as well. So at the bottom of the hill is what?
Panorama Rec Center and an elementary school.
And what goes on? I know that there's a speed skating group in the rec center. Did you know that?
I did not. It's there's swimming and there's a big tunnel and all kinds of swimming programs. And I do believe there's exercise programs that they offer and different activities.
Do you find that there's a variety of ages of people that go there?
I'm not really a Panorama Rec Center visitor, so I cannot comment on that. But I'm sure because I've looked at the brochure and there's things offered for little tiny tots to teenagers to middle-aged to elderly. There's lots of variety.
What about the demographics of the people living in Dean Park itself? Are there young families there, or are they kind of more established families, older people who I've noticed when I go to visit homes, it looks like they've been living there 30 years.
I think there's a good variety. Like on one side, we have neighbors who have been there forever. And then there's a really young family on the other side. And walking through the neighborhood to get to Dean Park, like to the trails, there is a great variety of families that live there.
Okay, so let's talk food. It's one of my favorite subjects.
Me too. I love food.
So have you eaten at the Roost?
I have eaten at the Roost. I love their breakfast, and they have amazing baking and pizzas, and they do their own wine, and everything's not everything, but a lot of the things they actually farm themselves to use in their bakery and restaurant.
And what corners is that at?
It's on East Saanich and McTavish. It's right there. There's a 4-way stop, and there's a little McTavish convenience store that, if you didn't grab the milk and Thrifty's is closed, and Thrifty's isn't even really far away. It's in Saanich. So
yeah, I go actually to that corner store all the time.
Yeah, it's a good one, and it's a good stop on the way to the airport or on the way to Sydney.
What about biking and stuff like that, or trails other than in Dean Park?
I am not a biker, so I'm not the person to ask that.
Lochside Trail, though?
Yes, Lochside Trail, and that will take you all the way. You can get all the way from Victoria all the way through to Sydney on it. So yes.
And it's pretty flat, I believe. So I actually haven't ridden it myself, but I did stay at Mitchell's one day for lunch. They have a little place beside there where they have a fabulous lunch place. So if you ever go.
I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a little behind them. Oh yeah, they have really great burgers and fries.
And they have really great, awesome macaroni and cheese, as well as grilled cheese sandwiches, which are a favorite of mine.
Oh, I'll have to check that out.
And Mitchell's is a place to go if you want to get your pumpkins and stuff like that. What about buying fresh fruits and vegetables? So Mitchell's is one of those places. What else?
Sun Trio on East Saanich Road, and it's all organic, and they have it set up on an honor system, right? So there's nobody manning the store, but you can go in, you can weigh, things are bundled, you add up your purchases, and they have a cash box, or they even have a debit machine that you can, there's a guide on how to put yourself through it. So it's great for fresh produce throughout the year.
That's an awesome idea, the debit machine.
It is, because lots of people don't have cash.
Yeah. What about eggs? I know lots of people have chicken farms. So Central Saanich, you're not allowed to have chickens, but you can in North Saanich. Where do you get your eggs?
You can get them at Sun Trio. A lot of times I would get them at Carnivore Meats in Brentwood Bay at the butcher, which is all ethically grown, no hormones, no antibiotics. It's extremely clean meat. And the owner, Ian, is just fabulous.
Happy chickens?
Happy chickens. We would get our turkeys there, and it's all happy meat. Oh, happy meat is very important.
Okay, what about Sydney? Sydney's so close. So you're between Sydney and Saanich. Where would you go to buy your food?
I go to Sydney for Harrow's because it is an amazing restaurant right on the water. And Fish on Fifth is it's got excellent fish and chips.
Do Do you ever go to Maria's on 3rd for souvlaki?
Yes, they have very good Greek food with the Caesar Greek combination salad. Remember what's the name of that? I don't know.
Caesar gone Greek?
I think so. Yeah, it's really, really good. and bakeries. Like, there's no shortage of bakeries in Sydney. You know, the Roost, the Emporium, which is by far one of my most favorite coffee shops in Brentwood Bay. And Fresh Cup is actually where I get my coffee beans, because unfortunately Emporium doesn't sell coffee beans separate. So, but Fresh Cup is amazing, amazing coffee too.
Have you been to Tonoli's on East Saanich Road?
I have. They have really good breakfast burritos.
So I went there the other day with a friend of mine, and he had soft boiled eggs with bacon and other stuff on it. I don't know. It looked good.
You didn't taste it?
I'm not a soft egg eater. I'll eat scrambled, but not soft boiled eggs. I'm always surprised by the number of bookstores in Sydney as well.
Yeah, with a huge, huge variety of books.
And jewelry stores.
Yeah, and little craft stores and local stores. That's what I really like about it. You can park your car. You can walk all the way up one side and downside Beacon. They have some amazing women's clothing stores. Tatum and Olivia, which was one of my favorites, closed, but there's so many.
What about in terms of Brentwood? So again, Dean Park's kind of in the center of the peninsula. So Brentwood's just to the west, Sydney's to the northeast. How do you find their downtown? I find it kind of lacking.
Well, it's been expanding and growing. They have a really great raw food store for pets. There's liquor stores. There's obviously the spa, the Brentwood Lodge Spa and Resort has amazing food. I've never stayed there, but I've had family that have stayed there and really, really enjoyed it. But the view is great. You can, there's kayaking and paddle boarding and so many things to do.
Plus, you're kind of protected there weather-wise, I think, because you're not facing east. You're in the Saanich Inlet, so you don't tend to get as much wind in there, I find.
No, you don't. And you can, if you rent kayaks from there, you can actually go into the bay at the Bouchard Gardens and then come back out. And you can also get into Todd Inlet kayaking through there, which is really nice.
And I know my husband takes people diving in there. So it's really, and I've been diving in there as well, scuba diving. So it's known for that as well. Do you go to the Bouchard Gardens?
I used to go all the time. It's been a while. But I used to go every week and take erotic pictures of flowers. Yeah,
and so you created a book and wrote some poetry. What was that book called?
Erotic by Nature, because we're all erotic by nature. And Mother Earth shows us that through the beauty. Like, we're not separate from that.
And so did you just go to any of events, or did you go just to walk around the gardens?
I would go just to walk around the gardens. The less amount of people, the better.
That's true. It can get overwhelming. It's almost like going to a big resort when you go to Bouchard Gardens. I find like it's very professional now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and everything's just so beautiful, and it is a tourist attraction. So many people go there in the summer. And the winter, what is so lovely is they do the 12 days of Christmas in all the gardens, and it's just magical. And they have a skating rink and hot chocolate, and all the lights are so pretty.
And you can go there for tea.
Yes, you can go there for high tea. Mm-hmm.
Actually, we do a draw at the Briar Hill Group every year for 2 free tickets, and we get thousands of people who want to go, and it sort of creates a bit of momentum, I find, for awareness about that, because most people would come just in the summer, right? But it is beautiful.
Well, and even in the spring, in February, when none of the other flowers are out blooming, they have one pavilion with all these exotic flowers, and it's really humid in there, but yeah, you could spend hours.
Okay, so if you want to know more about the Dean Park area, you can contact me. I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, and stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about your business, which is?
I'm an erotic mastery coach.
Awesome. I'm sure it will be very entertaining and a lot of fun. Stay tuned.
Vancouver Island Time is brought to you by the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, Victoria, where we bring local expertise and global presence to your property.
Hi, Hi, everybody. It's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun and host of Vancouver Island Time. I'm here with Angela Thurston. Angela, tell me what it is that you do.
Well, I'm an erotic mastery coach, and I help business women who are in passionless relationships reclaim their erotic power.
Do you think people who are in passionless, that's very hard to say, by the way, in passionless relationships think that maybe they're not in love?
I think for many that is the case, yes.
And so is that one way to reclaim it, to feel the passion with somebody, like a connection on a physical level?
Yeah, it's more than just physical. When you're dealing with your erotic power, your sexuality, it actually includes emotional, mental, spiritual. It's not just about sex.
That's true, I think. We have an array of things here, and I thought we could have some fun today. And I will. How long have I known you now?
6-7 years.
Okay, and I used to run business meetings. And Angela would tell me, and I have to tell you, it's like not generally my comfort zone, but I'm keeping an open mind, and I'm asking our listeners to keep an open mind. So because some of them are going to be audio only, you maybe describe what it is physically as well as what it does.
Okay, I will. Before that, though, I would like to set a foundation that tools and techniques are not the entry point in to sexual satisfaction and fulfillment. And we do live in a world where we're bombarded with it, whether it's in the grocery store or in movies, advertisements. It all shows, 5 ways to give the ultimate blowjob, how to have, 6 positions to give you the best orgasm of your life. But what's really important, and the foundation for all, when I explore with myself and with all of my clients, is you have to understand your core erotic blueprint, because we're actually wired all differently erotically, right? We're energetic, sensual, sexual, kinky, and shapeshifter. And our culture is very sexually orientated. So all of those blueprints have superpowers, and all of them have shadow aspects. And so there's ways for you to explore mentally and somatically, like through your body, what is going to give you pleasure. So I'll show you the toys, but I'm going to speak to what blueprint that they would be beneficial to, because if an energetic was to pick up a vibrator, they might throw it back in the drawer and say, oh my God, that doesn't work for me. But it's just because it's not in alignment with how they actually are wired. And so going back to that, that's what happens with so many couples, is they have all these amazing things. They work well together. They're great parents. They're great partners in creating this home. But because at the beginning of a relationship, the majority of us fall into this sexual blueprint. But after time goes by, we move back into what we're wired with, right? And that's not to say that we can't expand into other areas. We definitely can expand into other areas. And so quite often couples will be erotically wired differently. And that's where the frustration and the lack of connection comes in.
So, and you have a tool for helping people determine what their blueprint is.
Yep, there's a blueprint quiz that they can take to get an idea mentally. But when you actually start going and playing in the body, a lot of times you're actually really surprised as to what your body responds to, because we have been culturally imprinted. We have been imprinted by our family's beliefs. And there's a lot of shame around sexuality.
And so I was just going to say that's a cultural thing.
That is a cultural thing.
Okay, let's go left to right here.
So this is one of my most favorite items. It's actually started off as a back massager, but Betty Dodson in the 70s, who I've studied with, she is the mother of masturbation. She's turning 90 this month, and she still teaches workshops in her living room in Manhattan. Sits on the ground. That's proof masturbation and orgasms do work, because Betty's like thriving at 90. And so in the 70s, with this consciousness movement groups, she started bringing sexuality and the magic wand, which has become a favorite toy. So I know if you're just listening on audio, it has a very substantial handle, and it has many speeds.
It's huge.
Well, and what I recommend, you want to feel it?
Sure.
So the best place to feel is on the end of your nose, because that's more like your clitoris.
Oh.
And that's
It tickles.
tickling is a good thing. And if somebody's highly sensitive, I would recommend using a towel or something between their genitals and the magic wand, because it can be too intense. This is really, sexuals really love vibration.
Okay.
And this is a much gentler and smaller, and it is actually a vibrator. I was playing with it earlier, and I don't mean in that way, but I mean, I was playing with it trying to get it turned on. We could just go so dirty with so many of these comments. And then I was like, oh, the battery's dead, but then it wasn't.
Do you insert that?
No, the magic wand is for topical only. Okay. And so if you're a sensual, this would be great if you were to like massage yourself. And because quite often, especially when we're self-pleasuring, we go straight for our genitals, which is very sexual, right? That sexuals are about orgasms, nudity, penetration, and genitals. So most of us masturbate in that blueprint, right? We just go for the gold. We don't take time to,
We don't seduce ourselves.
we don't seduce ourselves. And energetics are very much about connection. And a lot of times they can have multiple orgasms without even being touched, like using breath work and visualization and just having a hovering hand as opposed to a full hand. So
Very subtle.
it is very subtle, but they're capable of connecting at such deep levels.
So they would like something like this multi-faceted furry thing.
Depends on how you played with it. So a sensual would love it. So this is a fur flogger. So a sensual is all about the senses. It's all about touch, taste, sound, smell. And I know I'm missing one there, but taste, touch, sight, scent, and sound. So they would love, because the feeling of this is so nice. Do I have permission to?
Sure.
Right. So just they like long, slow strokes and very sensual. See, this is very, very soft. So if you were energetic, part of what might happen is you could play with it energetically, where it's just like barely touching. It's just like barely touching the hairs. And that would be more energetic. And this one doesn't have weights. There you can get them with weights on the end. So that would be really good for someone who was kinky, who liked that sensation play.
Do you work, when you say you work with professional women, but do you work with them and their partner?
I can, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because once you know what your blueprint is, once you discover it, you need to learn how to feed, speak, heal, and expand it. Because there's so many layers, and because there's shadows and superpowers to each of them, like getting to know that. Because even though your primary, like my primary blueprint is energetic kinky, but my strongest shadow is my sensual shadow. And sensual is further down on my list when you look at a blueprint stack.
Gotcha. Okay. What about this car washing muff?
Well, that's the thing, is you can get so many play items. You can go to the dollar store. I had a thing, like wooden spoons. This is, you can go to the dollar store with the car washing mitts. This would be sensual too. So sensuals are really good at creating space, like aesthetically pleasing space. One of the shadows of a sensual would be that they can have an elusive orgasm, because it's really hard for them to get out of their heads and into their bodies, right? They're thinking about, oh my God, Henry needs his
Dentures.
Yeah. Yes. But I was going to say Henry needs to be registered for soccer practice, but yeah, Henry could need his dentures too. So being in their heads and not in their bodies, that can stop them from the capability, because they can really receive a lot of pleasure through their bodies. And so then it's like the elusive orgasm. I'm almost there. Or they start projecting onto their partner. Oh my God, they're thinking this is taking too long. They must be bored. So those are some of the shadow aspects.
I'm learning so much. Okay.
So this sensual would, they love the full and slow. Like if you think you're going slow enough, go even slower. And so many of us just rush on in.
I'm going to sleep. I'm so relaxed.
Oh, good. Let's get you excited. So this is a barbell, Betty Dotson's barbell. She made this, not personally made this, but created it because it's really good for penetration. This is really good for a sexual blueprint, but it's also good too because it can for sensation play because it's cold and it's heavy. So you can do more with it than just use it for penetration. But the great thing about this is not only is it pleasure because you get the ridges at the top moving on your urethral sponge, otherwise commonly known as the G-spot, which is full of erectile tissue. It's really great for strengthening your pelvic floor, which is so important for our health.
For sneezing when you're over 50.
Well, so if you're pleasuring, especially with penetration, it really helps those muscles. And you can begin to, there's lots of things that you can do with it. Okay, so sensuals would also love to be blindfolded, and so would kinkies and shapeshifters, energetics, just depends. So a blindfold is really a great tool to have in your toy box because it helps to really focus on what's happening in your body and your responsiveness. But before
The rest becomes more sensitive because you're not focused on the visual.
Yes, but you'd want to also have a really good consent conversation with your partner before you did that.
What does that entail? Like, do you have a word or something? If I say like vegetables, like it's over, or I want the blindfold off or something?
Okay, so you have safe words, but at first you would have a conversation. What are your boundaries? What can I do? What can't I do? Well, let's do the blindfold. I like these items. I don't want you stuffing things in my nose or my ears. Today I'm not okay with anal play, and then you're creating that container. And then depending on the kind of play you're doing, if you were doing kinky play, then yes, you would definitely have safe words where there's, commonly yellow is K. Caution, don't go anywhere beyond that. And red is definitely everything about this just stops. And then there's got to be aftercare. You can't just abandon your partner. But each one of these you can go so in depth with. And that's where the Erotic Blueprint Breakthrough course is so perfect because it takes you through it all, as well as working with a coach
What sort of feedback do you get from the people who've taken these courses
and worked with me? Life-changing. Like one of the biggest things is actually discovering what turns them on, what brings them pleasure, and then actually having the tools to communicate that to their partner and having the courage to ask for what they want.
I think that's hard in generally in any relationship, in whether it's money or, being intimate or work or family. Like people create a sort of a blockade around themselves. Do you find that?
I do, but what this does is it offers opportunities for explorations. So you're not really attached to the outcome or reaching a certain goal. Like we're going to have an hour of play, but that doesn't mean we're going to have orgasms or that this is going to be the end result. It's just about what does this look like and how do we enjoy it through the process of this connection, and what information can we gain? Because we're not mind readers, and most times we touch the way we want to be touched. And if you have an energetic and a sexual, they're going to both be starving.
Right, because one wants to be touched more firmly than the other.
Well, one's very focused on the genitals, and the other one needs like heart connection and, more connection and, yes, less on the skin touch to start with.
Gotcha.
Okay. So, and for an energetic shadows, I didn't talk about that. They can disassociate, like they can actually not even be present for what's happening. Because if time and touch isn't, if timing of touch and in the wrong spot, if it's not timed correctly, it will just make them shut down.
So they're in their head.
They can be in their head, or they can actually be in the pleasure, but for whatever reason, maybe their nipple gets touched before they're actually ready for that, it will just shut the pleasure down from their bodies.
Huh. Okay. There are 5 different
5.
blue. So is it 20% each, or is there one more than the other?
Well, when you take the quiz, which you can put the link in, it varies. Each person's different, right?
Okay, but I mean, like across populations.
I can't answer that.
We don't know.
No, and we're all a different combination of all of them. We're all so unique. Right?
Gotcha.
Okay, and so sexual, some of the shadow with sexual is they get too focused on the end result. So they don't actually enjoy the journey, and they might be a bit more hyper-focused on their experience rather than their partners. And then there's kinky. And there's 2 types of kinky. There's psychological kink, and there is sensation-based kink. So psychological kink would be more about the mental and the either controlling or being controlled, and
Dominance and
submissive. That's part of it. Not everybody who's kinky is in, like BDSM is actually a culture and a lifestyle, and not everybody who has a kinky primary blueprint is that, but many are. So sensation based is all about the items. So, floggers, and a lot of times it's not so much the feeling. Lots of people who have a kinky blueprint like the impact play and like the pain aspect of it. And a lot of them just like the sound of it. Like this flogger doesn't sound really loud, but here, do you want to do your hand?
Sure. That actually didn't hurt at all. That's kind of interesting.
It is. So there's so many things. So there's different activities that as you're learning the blueprints and doing the work, you actually learn how to feed it. So this is a Wartenberg wheel. I do not like this at all, but many people do. Do you want to feel that?
Maybe.
Let's try on the inside.
It's very prickly.
It's very prickly. And the beautiful thing about all of this and discovering what we like, and we explain it when we're with our partners, it doesn't mean that our partners are touching us wrong. They're not wrong or bad. And we're not wrong or bad or broken, but it gives a way to explain how you actually really like to be touched. So it just opens up a whole new dialogue of conversation.
I find I'm less judgmental about all this than I was when I was younger, because I just like the whole right or wrong, or somebody who's not like me is wrong. I'm much more open. Do you find that people, the older they get, they're more accepting?
No, I don't find that as a general rule. I find that it depends on the individual. And I think the more we educate ourselves, I can speak for myself, the more I became educated and participated and immersed myself with other sex positive individuals, my judgment started to fall away. There's so much pleasure. Like kinkies are so creative and so diverse. Some of their shadows are, they can go into, because there can be so much shame with this blueprint. There can be shame with all the blueprints, but they can end up having only one route to pleasure or one route to orgasm. Like it just becomes a fixation because they aren't exploring the other things that would truly bring them joy because of shame. And shapeshifter is all the blueprints. Shapeshifters love everything. Shapeshifters need everything. They make amazing lovers. They have a great sexual vocabulary. And one of their shadows is that they might get to a place where they're never truly satisfied because they're always adapting to accommodate whatever their partner's blueprint is. And they need it all.
They need to communicate better, maybe, about their own needs.
Well, that too, with all of them, they do. But you just discovering that is also, it's okay, because often a shapeshifter will feel like they're too much, and it's actually okay to want it all.
Okay, if you want more information about the Dean Park area, you can contact me. I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group. If you want more information from Angela, contact her at angelathurston.com or email her at angela@angelathurston.com. Take care and have a pleasurable day.
Welcome to the neighborhood. We hope you have had some insight into West Coast living. If you know of someone or someplace that should be highlighted in our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. please go to VancouverIslandTime.com and click on our Connect button. See you next week on Vancouver Island Time with Jane Johnston.